Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is R Muldrake, that's RMULDRAKE, and welcome to my YouTube channel. This week I'm going to be covering Lower Decks, Star Trek Lower Decks Season 3, and I will be doing this for the entirety of the season. I am also on the Rarely Going, I had to think about that then, the Rarely Going podcast on the We Made This Podcast Network. I will be on those or some of those episodes, but I just thought that on my YouTube channel I can give you my general thoughts on each episode as it airs, because I'm not on every single episode of that podcast, and I thought that Lower Decks will be a good one to start with. So Lower Decks Season 3 Episode 1 is entitled Grounded, and it sees Mariner on a one-person mission to try and retrieve Captain Freeman, who the end of last episode, First Contact, was arrested, and we find a little bit more information about what that is, and and it concludes in a really interesting way in this episode. But I thought the episode was really good. I thought the way that it was drawn and subverted what we would normally expect. It had the film element of Star Trek, where Mariner's one and only mission is to go and save her mother, and she was going to break the rules and do all she can to actually bring her mother home. And what I liked about this episode is the way that it subverts that at the end. Everything that Mariner has done has been to try and save Freeman. And what I particularly liked about this is the way that the beginning of the episode showcases just how trust in the Starfleet system is something that she should do. And if you were to watch any of the films, then you would obviously get to a point where Kirk was a bit gung-ho and he would go off and do his own thing, and that would inevitably work out. This show is brilliant at this type of thing, and I think this is a really strong case for the way that they do this episode, in that we have our adventure, we have our Mariner adventure and the things that she gets up to, but ultimately it's Starfleet who actually saved the day, and I liked that was part of it. I'm a huge fan of Star Trek, as many people might know that I'm on the Make It So, a Star Trek Picard podcast. So this era of Star Trek is my favorite era. So Lower Decks, always, because it's around the same time period, I find really good, because it has links to all of the things that I really love, and some of the callbacks and Easter eggs really work for me. And it's nice to see some Deep Space Nine stuff in here. That seems to be, or potentially could be, looking at the trailer for Season 3, could be something that we'll come back to, and it will be really interesting to see how much of the Deep Space Nine analogies and callbacks that we get in here. The Ketracel White Hot Sauce, which was mentioned in my my review of the San Diego Comic-Con recently, that I mentioned in that it was good to see that Ketracel White Hot Sauce, and seeing Boimler not exactly enjoying himself at Cisco's was really good. And as I say, having the Deep Space Nine connection there, I think worked really, really well. Also as well, some of the Easter eggs I really enjoyed in this episode were on the Federation News Network. That was giving us some backstory, and it was a good source. The Federation News Network, I think from what I've gathered, was the first reveal of that network was on Star Trek Remembrance, or potentially even the Children of Mars would be the first case time that we've seen this, and I think it was in Maps and Legends and Star Trek Picard as well. So I like that we've got the FNN network, shall I say. And there was a few little things on the ticker tape which I really liked. I like the fact that the stage was stormed by teens for the Sonny Clemens concert, which is obviously a callback to Star Trek Next Generation's Neutral Zone, with Sonny and his kind of folk music thing that he was doing. They were the people that were frozen and brought back in Star Trek Next Generation. Admiral Jellicoe has banned the Zulabon, who were the sisters who were doing the Choo 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 dance. So that was back in Terminal Provocations in Star Trek Lower Decks. And they said it was a piece of genius, I think, for adding the third chew. So hopefully they haven't added a fourth chew, but that was good. And of course the stratagemer, Grandmaster, someone who's age 6, and that was the episode. I don't quite remember the episode now, what it was called, but it was the episode where Data challenged the Grandmaster to the game, and he played it so he couldn't. So he played not to lose rather than playing to win, and actually won it that way. So those are really good. I mean, to bring Jellicoe into it was great. I thought that was really fantastic, and it was it was good. I like these Easter eggs, I like the building of the world, and actually recalling these things, because it's not something that happens very often in the other shows. And I am all for world building, so the fact that that was brought in, I thought was marvelous. We've got Mariner, who's not is frustrated. She's frustrated. She doesn't know what's going on with her mother. She's raises some good points about San Francisco, the Golden Gate Bridge, and they don't have any cars anymore, which I thought was a good call. Now, people might be able to remind me, but I thought that the San Francisco Bridge was potentially now just solar panels, or it's capturing solar energy. I don't know where I've got that from. It might be on some of the video inserts when we look at, I don't know, say Star Trek Picard or something like that, potentially. It's interesting from Mariner's perspective of her character that we do get elements of Mariner saying that she didn't grow up on Earth, and the more that she spends time away from the ship, the more useless she feels. So she feels more at home on the ship life. And you know, as much as like we've seen her over the last 2 seasons, that she has this issue with authority, but she also has a real desire to be with Starfleet, and often her personality gets in the way of that. And bearing in mind what happens at the end, where Commander Ransom gets to be the new Mama, which I thought was great, and that will set up a nice little story towards the into the series, into the show's season. And I like that we've got Mariner, who still has this need and desire to be on the ship and to do things. She needs to be constantly doing something, and yeah, it's good. And she drives this episode really well, and yeah, to see her struggling with what's happening really worked well for this episode. When we get to Boimler and the vineyard, I thought that was nice. That was a nice little callback to start Next Generation's family. He just has no idea that the girls on the vineyard are all after him, and he has no inclination on that. The way that he actually his naivety really kind of comes across there, and I think having that play in, and again, because he is so like wanting to be a Starfleet officer, that he's got, again, that one mind, that one track mind, which is another thing that Mariner and Mariner and Boimler have in common. I think worked, and seeing him obviously swallowing the fly and things like that, and like the comment in this particular episode was for Kirk's sake, which I like using that phrase. I think that phrase is one that sticks. In this whole episode felt really well put together. It had all of the elements and all of the acts in the right place, and it had all of the nice connective tissue. In this regard, it's that Boimler had the logs, and from last episode, the ship went through the debris field and lost power, and the Cerritos had to take away its hull, which is why the way the hull looks right now is because it had to get rid of that hull to be able to save the ship. And having the corrupted files and not being able to use them as evidence in the trial, lovely story element, lovely kind of reason for it. And the fact that Boimler has this need to be as methodical as he is, having the logs either repeated back or doing it, but then adding his own little spin on that, worked really well for the story. And you know, when we find out that he's added his little things and saying, I hope no one finds out Purple die and things like that, really works, because on top of that, the story kind of pulls itself in by saying, why would someone listen to a goofy ensign if they're not going to look to a California class captain? And again, feeding back into last week's episode, that or last season's episode, should I say, having the California class, which was all part of what last episode was about, that Freeman was leaving the ship to go and work on the California class, and she couldn't take her crew with her, and that opened up some story stuff within that last episode, that just by the fact that Mariner's saying the California class captain just continues on. It's lovely continuity, and I think it's maybe a little bit underplayed, and but done in a way, the right way, and actually, you know, for the people that might not remember last season, or if they're just general watchers, it could easily pass you by. But I just love the fact that they've done it in that way. You really get an idea of what this show's about, and the way that the writers actually love everything about Star Trek, and I just absolutely love that. When we are in Sisko's Krilo kitchen, the Bozeman is mentioned there by Tendi, and again, coming back to like character focus, that Tendi never left San Francisco when she was at the academy, and you know, the running theme again is just how much, you know, a Mariner might play with the rules and actually do things like that, but she has a one-track mind in what she wants to do. Same with Boimler. Boimler's slightly different, but then Tendi is so dedicated to the job that she's a studier. She just wants to learn everything she can, and negates things like being able to go out and play, to go and visit Montana like they do here. To, you know, she never left San Francisco, and especially given that we're in the Star Trek universe, that she could pretty much go anywhere and it'll be fine and it'll be quick. But she's so into her studies and so into that she never had time to like just kind of look up and look at the stars and to look at, you know, other things and the historical nature of stuff, which is surprising in one way, but actually totally understandable for in another. And I thought that was great. And yeah, again, just really kind of, I think for me, just really pushing the element that these characters are their own characters and they're really well written. Rutherford, with his implants, can remember a 19-digit location code for the Cerritos, and we go to the transporter. And again, the way that the story kind of moves forward here, that we get to the transporter and we meet Denny, and there's some great moments with the grandpa element and the not wanting to knock him out, and we've got like a graveyard of transporters, and I'm sure people will go over those transporters with a fine-tooth comb and work out which one's on which, you know, and things like that. So and that's the good thing about this show, is that you can look into that, and there'll be things that I missed, and you know, I'm by no means an expert on Star Trek lore. So it's nice to pick up some things, but it's also nice to find out what other people are thinking as well. And yeah, so we find out the transporters aren't going to be viable, because in the news article they were talking about these incandescent creatures. I think they were called the Verugaman. I said it a few times, but I think it's called the Verugaman, and that would eliminate the chance of actually being able to transport over. First Contact, one of my favorite Star Trek films. By, you know, it is one of those great moments, and seeing the crew wearing Cochrane's hats and looking at the bar and seeing that this Vulcan ship is now a little playground, which is totally in keeping with what we would do in that kind of idea of, you know, building a theme park around something and a historical landmark and stuff. I thought it was wonderful. I love the bar, having the bar there, and you know, the holographic Cochrane and all the voiceover work that's done for the area. I think you know, just being able to like recall that, and given again the world building aspect, really good to have it on Earth, and to be able to like sort of play into those tropes. And then of course we get the Phoenix. When we get the Phoenix and the nods to First Contact with the music, and Gavin arrives, and Gavin gets his own little Star Trek moment, which was great. And just the way that, you know, he says it's my own little trek, which was fantastic. And when we get to the Cerritos and the various story elements that happen within these scenes, with, you know, the shuttlecraft being locked and sent on autopilot to home, and Boimler manages to change home to to the Cerritos, which worked really well. And I liked just the small detail as well, that during the actual return to the Cerritos, that they didn't factor in the atmosphere, and that's a lovely touch. I like that. When we get Mariner at this point, we're 2/3 of the way through the episode, and the fact that she does break down, she breaks down because she is helpless. She can't help her mother. She wants to really help Captain Freeman, and it's all for naught. She's tried everything, and that for me is just great storytelling. I think it just goes to show how strong this show is, really. And she would do anything. She'd go to the Klingons and find out what's going on, all to release her mother. Another moment, I just love the fact that they were playing 3D chess on the security console, and when the Cerritos comes past, and they just go red button and just push it. That didn't need any more. It was comic timing, brilliant, absolutely fantastic. You've got the charged tentacles, which is kind of something of a kind of becoming a bit of a Lower Decks trope. I enjoy it. The security team have been fooled at this point, and ask for the commanding officer, and the fact that there's a bit of a dramatic pause and then Freeman shows up is great. And the kind of the as I say at the top of the hour, the nature of Starfleet not being trusted, and it's actually Starfleet that put this massive team together. Bear in mind it's Morgan Batesman, which is obviously Kelsey Grammer's captain from Cause and Effect. And not only that, we've got because that was the USS Bozeman as well, so that was a lovely touch. I can't imagine how. I mean, Kelsey Grammer at this moment in time, you've got to think of how old he was, and he's a captain, and he's running around doing his secret ops things like we've got in Chain of Command. So yeah, I thought that was a nice touch having Batesman in there. So because just imagining Kelsey Grammer in like what Worf, Picard, and Crusher were in Chain of Command, that would be great to see. And maybe Kelsey Grammer can actually cosplay next time, and maybe come to a Star Trek convention and cosplay as Batesman in that leotard. That'd be fantastic. The Packlids always after more power. They're the ones behind it. That we've got a mention of Tuvok, that he found the Forger, and the Forger was someone who gave the Packlids up, and it was the Packlids who actually destroyed their own planet because they thought they might get to a more resource-intensive planet. Totally works. And finally seeing Gavin not being able to do his Trek Amongst the Stars. So I'm really overjoyed with this first episode. I've loved most of Lower Decks in the episodes that I've watched. There is some good social commentary. If you do want to listen to some of the podcasts that I've been on Rarely Going, then please feel free. My link tree will be in the description. So yeah, come and join me next week when we look at episode 2. And thank you for joining me. Live long and prosper.